Resolved, the United States federal government should implement an energy policy that substantially increases investments in one or more of the following domestic energy sectors: nuclear, hydroelectric, geothermal, wind, solar. So first off, when I was in high school, my best friend went to the Great Barrier Reef and he took these gorgeous photos of fish and coral and turtles. And we made this agreement that one day we would go back and visit the Great Barrier Reef together. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen because the Great Barrier Reef last year was declared dead. That means over 60% of it was now a victim to bleaching because of the increased acidity and increased temperature of the oceans. This is not getting any better. In fact, it's continuing to get worse, which prompts today's important case. First, we're going to talk about the resolutional analysis. The A point is the burdens. This will be a policy round as the resolution specifically mandates a policy, meaning the role of the affirmatives is to uphold the stock issues of harms, inherency, solvency, and topicality through the implementation of a policy. The B point is the definitions. Molten salt reactors, hereafter called MSRs, are a type of fast neutron nuclear reactor which use molten salt as the primary coolant and or fuel, as opposed to light water reactors that are used in the world today. Thorium is a radioactive element with 3 times the abundance and 1/10 the half-life of uranium. In the 1950s, thorium was passed over for use in nuclear reactors because uranium was far more weaponizable. So why use thorium when you can just make a bomb with uranium too? Kind of a bummer, but nowadays that's actually an asset that is not weaponizable. Third is high SA, low enriched uranium, aka HALEU, which is a fuel required for many advanced reactors in development, and is created from previously spent nuclear fuel used in old reactors. So the C point is the plain text. The United States federal government will sign into law H.R. 3306, known as the Nuclear Energy Leadership Act. This bill establishes advanced nuclear goals, funds fast neutron reactors, and makes HALEU fuel available for research and development in advanced reactors. The agent of action is going to be Congress will pass and the president will sign. The timeline is immediately. Funding is from the $32.5 billion Department of Energy budget. The criteria for this round will be net benefits, meaning the affirmative will prove that the overall benefits of supporting the plan outweigh the costs or detriments. The burden of the negative is to prove the opposite, that the detriments or costs of the plan outweigh the benefits. Now on to the advantages. The first is better energy. Now, the point of this is the harms. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, greenhouse gas emissions are driven in accelerating the climb in global temperature. Fossil fuels and industrial processes are the biggest contributors. In the 2018 report published by the IPCC, the timeline is shorter than previously imagined to reduce greenhouse emissions or face a 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius increase in temperature, which would spell a rise in sea levels, widespread coral reef extinction, famine, extreme natural disasters, including larger and more frequent hurricanes. This is a serious problem, and 1.5 to 2 degrees doesn't seem like a lot until you realize that that could potentially melt a huge portion of the polar ice caps, having catastrophic effects over the entire world. Next is the inherency. The structural inherency preventing the use of nuclear power in place of fossil fuels is one of overregulation and underfunding. So the 3 points of solvency. The Nuclear Energy Leadership Act streamlines regulations and allocates the Department of Energy funds specifically for advanced reactor R&D, specifically things like molten salt reactors, thorium development, etc. The point of this is now the impacts. Increased energy efficiency is the first impact. According to the Institute of Physics, nuclear energy is 8,000 times more efficient per unit of fuel burned than fossil fuels or coal. This means more power with significantly less waste. That's huge when you talk about people being concerned about the nuclear waste output when you talk about new reactors and how more efficient they are. When in fact, you can get 60% more fuel burned out of new age MSRs as opposed to traditional light reactors that only consume about 1% of the fuel potential. So that is a 60-time increase over something that already is a better fuel source with 8,000 times better output than fuel or coal. So the amount of waste is actually dramatically lower. The second impact is a decreased dependence on coal and fossil fuels means a huge win for the decarbonization necessary to slow the climb of global temperatures. It's at the point practically of no return where we have to do something to decrease, not only limit our increase, but actually decrease the amount of carbon in the atmosphere. But in order to do that, we have to offset our current demands, and energy demands, things like wind and solar, while they're great, they can't possibly supplement it in time. So we need something that is much more efficient, like nuclear in this way, that decreases our dependence, which means less drilling, less coal mining, things that are dramatically more dangerous and more harmful to us than anything that nuclear has done. The third point is that stabilizing global temperatures means a decrease in the length and severity of droughts, fires, famines, oceanic temperatures that kill marine life. In short, and this really truly can't be understated, nuclear can help save the world. The second advantage is energy stability. The harms that after the Chernobyl disaster, the world has been terrified of nuclear energy, and globally, nuclear power generation has dropped by 11% and has not recovered since. Unironically, Russia is the only country that has continued rapid R&D on nuclear power, and according to The Economist of August 2018, this has made them the dominant country for design and export of nuclear power plants. Meanwhile, India and China are poised to lead nuclear power plant growth, leaving the U.S. basically in the dust, or coal in this case. The inherency in this is the long-standing attitudinal inherency barring research into nuclear energy is largely evaporated as the Nuclear Energy Leadership Act was passed with overwhelming bipartisan support in the Senate, now awaiting House approval. The 3 points to solvency: by passing the NELA, the US will receive much needed leg up in the research and development arm. And this leads to the impacts that India, while it's poor in uranium, it is rich in thorium, a much more abundant and safe fuel for nuclear reactors. Rather than relying on the whims of OPEC nations and their ever-changing financial and political agendas, the US can increase intellectual and physical trade with India. The second impact is that stable energy prices mean a stronger economy that can stand behind the predictable growth of nuclear energy rather than the volatile price of oil. This economic stimulator also creates the kind of jobs in research and development that positively impact the economy. Overall, it's a choice for the better and a choice for, honestly, helping save the world, and nuclear is the first step in getting us there. For these reasons, I urge a ballot for the affirmative.